When someone mentions the word prison, most people think of this. But never this. But how did we get here? Where are these prisons located, and why do they even exist in the first place? This and many more questions is what I've set out to investigate today, and hopefully by the end of the day we'll be having some answers. First of all, I'd like us to begin with examples of such prisons and where they're located to give us kind of a starting ground for this video. When someone is sent to prison, they're most definitely separated from their parents, and in some situations, their children were separated from their parents. Did I say the same thing? Okay, what I meant to say is when someone is sent to prison, they're most definitely separated from their families, and in some situations, they're children who are separated from their parents. And to help solve this, we have the Aranjuez prison in Spain, which allows inmates to live with their children for the first few years while they still serve their sentence in an almost home-like environment. Although this environment is still new, this greatly helps the children to be closer to their parents while they still serve their sentence. And although some people might not view this as a luxury, well, let's just say you do not know what you have till it's gone from you.
I don't know about you, but I love my space. I don't like being in crowded places, let alone live with more than one person. I always find that living with more than one person makes the rooms start getting a little bit overcrowded. And for prisons that have been previously known for being overcrowded, I consider this a very big win. This is the Champ Darlin prison in Switzerland, where the inmates get spacious rooms with working bathrooms. Come on. From being overcrowded to getting your own room with a working bathroom, come on, that's a very big win. And I don't know about you, I consider that a very big W. The next prison I'd like to talk about is one that houses a capacity of a few over 100 inmates who get access to a tennis court, fishing and riding activities, and to be honest, not even I get access to those on the daily. They're also allowed to work while they're in the prison and earn money which they can use in the prison shop. And to be honest, this is not even a punishment, as working and getting paid is something that still happens in the outside world, and still being allowed to spend the money on whatever you want is another definite luxury for me. This is the Bastøy prison located on the Bastøy Island in Norway. And also, the visitors who visit these inmates are allowed from the mainland 3 times a week and can also spend the time on the island, where the inmates are allowed to spend the nights there as well. The next side quest for today is feeding the cow. Let's do this right now while I tell you about the next place I wanted to talk about. Everybody meet... he doesn't even have a name yet. Shit. Something else that some of these prisons actually do is teach them hands-on skills that they would actually use if they were in the outside world. One of them being dairy farming and even electrical engineering. This is the Otago Correctional Facility in New Zealand, which, according to what I found, operates more like a factory than a prison. The inmates are taught hands-on skills which they would actually use if they were in the outside world. Again, most people might not consider this a luxury, but being taught these skills is really useful, especially in helping these people that are back in the outside world. Plus, they also get very good rooms which have working bathrooms. Okay everyone, let's go back inside. He's averagely strong. He's alright. I don't know about you, but having a phone is not a luxury I'd want to give up. And lucky for me, that is not what I meant. What I meant to say is that there are prisons that cater for this as well. Okay, first of all, the devices will not be connected to the internet for obvious reasons. We don't want you looking at some but still having them around is still a major W. The HMP Berwyn prison is what I'm talking about. And these devices are fitted in every room where the inmates are allowed to use them to do their daily assignments and also do their weekly shopping. That's pretty cool if you ask me. I mean, and if that can be counted as a luxury, what can? Speaking of luxuries, I'm hungry. Let's go catch some grub. I love eating, and even more having freedom over my diet, and believe it or not, there are prisons that cater for this as well, as they come with a kitchenette where the inmates can cook up some of their own stuff, but still have some food offered by the main prison itself. This is the Justice Center Leiden in Austria, and the cherry on top is it only houses a capacity of 205 inmates, which definitely rules out the issue of overcrowding.
The next side quest is my brother finishing this food. Let's see how long it takes. This is a pretty cool time lapse that I recorded of him doing it. Hope you enjoy this. Bro couldn't finish the food though. See you in the next one. Side quest. So I'm at a river right now, and I'm about to cross it, but what I'm crossing with on crazy. I mean, just look at this. This is what I'm going to be using to cross. I'm not even kidding right now. You know what? Let me go back and just give you guys a POV shot of what I'm seeing. Okay. So now you guys can see whatever I'm seeing. Bro, this spot right here looks pretty bad. This spot looks pretty bad. We made it. Here's a pretty cool montage I thought I'd make off of this place. Alright, now that we have examples of such prisons, the next question I'd like to find the answer to is, how did we get here and why do these kinds of prisons exist? First, let's start with how we got here in the first place, then end off with the reasons behind the existence of these facilities. And to begin with, there's not much that I found on the background of most of these facilities, but here's what I found. First up, we had the Champdalen prison, which I mentioned before, which had the issue of overcrowding. This constantly led the inmates to hold riots to cry out against their poor situation that they were living in. This led the prison to getting a funding of $40 million, which was used to revamp the prison to its current luxurious state. But to understand how we got here even better, I searched the internet for answers and all I kept seeing was the Stanford prison experiment. I'd never heard of it before, but I was not willing to overlook it, as this could be the single piece with the answers that I'm searching for. First of all, I'd like us to begin with having an understanding of what this experiment even was and how useful and how relevant it is in our situation. And according to a Vsauce video that I found, this was an experiment conducted in 1971 led by Dr. Philip Zimbardo, where 12 young men were taken up by police officers and taken to a makeshift prison in the basement of Stanford University. Basically what this was, it was an experiment to determine the effect and the psychology of prison life on inmates. This experiment was supposed to take 2 weeks, where the participants, being 12 guards and 12 prisoners, were supposed to be involved in recreating the prison life. The prisoners were made to completely change into more prison-like garments, which was even complete with shackles.
This is unbelievable! They took my clothes. Hands off the door.
And also they could only be addressed to using their prisoner numbers, forgetting their names.
The prisoners are booked and stripped nude. They're no longer individuals, forced to wear smocks, stocking caps, and shackles, identified only by their prisoner numbers.
Sadly, this experiment was shut down just 6 days after it was started because of the severity of the situation the prisoners underwent through. The prisoners were constantly being subjected to torture, being beaten and harassed by the guards, being restricted to use the bathrooms, and also the guards controlled their food rations in a very discriminative manner. In fact, just 2 days after the experiment started, the prisoners already staged a rebellion. Then 4 days later, 3 prisoners were so traumatized that they were allowed to go out. The full Vsauce video will be linked down below in case you want to watch the full video yourself. The conclusion arrived to by Dr. Zimbardo states that evil is the exercise of power, and when people feel anonymous and have power over others, it's very easy for them to become evil. And how I feel this applies to our situation is that even in the movies we watch about prison life, this comes up more than we think. For example, for new inmates who arrive arrive in prisons, there are already other inmates who've been there before who are ready to take advantage of their superiority to blackmail and use these new inmates. This is similar to what happened in the Stanford prison experiment, where just because the guards had anonymity and had power over the prisoners, they took advantage of that to make their lives miserable and torture them.
On the other hand, it was personally interesting to me. I cannot say that I, did not enjoy what I was doing. Maybe, having so much power over these poor defenseless prisoners, maybe, you kind of get off on that a little bit.
But this was not the only cost of the cruel behavior that the guards inflicted on the prisoners. Other guards, according to the Vsauce video that I mentioned before, said that they felt obligated to do that because of the people who were conducting the experiment. What I mean is that they felt that this was the behavior that was needed to enhance the prison environment for the sake of the experiment.
I think one was because I really believed I was helping the researchers with some better understanding of human behavior.
When we have these luxurious prisons, they kind of aim to reduce this as the inmates get to experience an environment which is conducive for them to think about their mistakes and change if they wanted to, because to be honest, you can't really force somebody to change. You can only give them an environment that is conducive for them to change, for them to make that change themselves. Also, something else that I found is that there are prisons that you can actually pay to stay. These cells actually have amenities that you could find in a hotel in the outside world. However, the sad part is that the people who get to live and experience and use these pay-to-stay prisons are people who actually have the funds to do so, leaving out people who don't have the funds to just live in the harsh conditions of the normal cells, which are usually unsanitary and dirty, not to mention the harsh treatment that they get from the guards and also other inmates. Notable people who got to experience and use this pay-to-stay arrangement in prison is Robert Downey Jr., who got to pay for a secluded cell to live in the Los Angeles County Jail. But what is the core purpose of the prisons that I mentioned before? The prisons allow the felons to acquire skills which are really useful in the outside world, like the examples that I mentioned before, e.g. the Champ Dolan prison, which allows the inmates to acquire electrical engineering skills, dairy farming, among others. It serves as a good source for the knowledge where these skills that they acquire can be really instrumental in helping them settle back into the outside world once they get out of prison. My second reason is that the prisons allow the prisons allow the children to stay with their parents for the first few years while they still serve their sentence. This really helps to keep the families together as the children get to stay with their parents in the prison, and although it's still a prison, the Aaron West prison tries to make it more home-like in helping the children to get a better environment and better place to spend time with their parents. My third and final reason that I had is that the prisons provide a more serene and better environment for the felons to change into better and law-abiding and responsible people. Because like I mentioned before, you can't really make someone change, you can only give them what they need to change. Then they should make that change themselves if they want to and if they have the willpower to do so. Before I finish off, I'd like to look at the special treatment that rich and famous people are subject to in the sentence that they receive as compared to other non-famous people who committed the same offense. A very good example is Elizabeth Holmes, who I didn't even know before this video, who was said to have swindled around $700 million from investors after it was found out that her blood testing company was a lie. She was initially sentenced to 11 years in prison, but it was also recently reduced to just 9 years. And the prison that she was sent to is actually a low security prison, which goes by the name of Federal Prison Camp Bryan, Texas, which is also where other rich and famous people get to serve their sentence. Another example is Lindsay Lohan, who also got sentenced to just a day in prison but never actually got to spend that time in prison, as she only got to spend 84 minutes, after which she got released. But to be honest, if it was just someone else who isn't rich or famous, well, let's just say it's not going to be an 84-minute stay for you.